If you've come looking for Batman recommendations because you either want to get into graphic novel or comics, you've come to the right place. Today I'll be going through various graphic novels, but I'll be leaving out some of the classic titles that have been released like donkeys years ago, like Batman Year One, because I think it's better to focus on the newer stuff because then you can start keeping up to date with series and stuff like that. You're not necessarily trying to catch up on 30 years of media or something like that. You can keep it easy. You can get the latest trade that's out and then go on from there. So saying that, my first recommendation is The Neighbourhood. Now this only came out last month with a new creative team, and from what I have seen, it does look pretty good. It's about a villain called Mr. Wealth who is 8 foot and is basically leaving blood everywhere he goes. So Batman is trying to find him and take him down. It's a pretty standard story, but as it's an introduction to the actual series itself, is a good place to actually start. The next one I wanted to talk about was Batman Detective. Now this is just the one shot, so you don't need to read anything else after. There is no continuation of the story. It's Batman going into London. He has some supporting characters in London, and he's basically trying to investigate, I believe, some murders or something around those lines. Then we have something called Batman by John Ridley. This is not Bruce Wayne in the cowl. Instead, it is another character. It's a collection of 4 issues, 2 of which I've already read, and I've really enjoyed it. It's about Gotham, where all mask and all vigilante activities has been ceased, and it is illegal to be a vigilante anymore. So the cops have got like these super weapons to take out all these vigilantes and stuff like that. There's no super villains, there's no superheroes anymore. So a new person puts on the cowl and decides to start saving people in Gotham. It's kind of set up to be this kind of mystery on who the new Batman is, but unfortunately DC printed it with his face on the cover. So right from the get-go you're going to know who it is, unfortunately. It had loads of mystery in the first issue of who it could be, but as they've printed the graphic novel with his face front and centre, you're going to know who it is. But the story itself is really good, and it's really engaging. Even though it doesn't feature Bruce Wayne, the new Batman is actually quite good. Following on from that, we have Their Dark Designs. This is by James Tynion IV. It's a little way in the run. Currently there are 4 graphic novels out. However, they have started to re-release the first 2 in trade paperback format. The first volume is about someone called the Designer. He makes contact with Catwoman, Joker and the Riddler, and he basically wants to design this grand scheme of things of how they would want their Gotham to look like, and incorporate wealth and money throughout it and make it bigger than it already is, and just get rid of Batman from the get-go. The present day storyline focuses on a bunch of assassins that have been hired to take on Batman, whereas really they are distractions to actually keep him busy whilst whilst the Designer has his own plan in motion. Honestly, it is the best Batman story that I've read in a very long time. It's phenomenal. The art is just gorgeous, and the story is just something else. I have yet to read Joker War, which is the follow-up, but I will be buying that very soon, and I will definitely be reading more of that run because, as I said, it is absolutely amazing. There is some of the older stuff that I'd like to mention. Now, don't worry, it's not like years and years behind. It is a few years older, but they're kind of a modern classic take on Batman. The first one I want to mention is Batman Damned. Now, this is a black label, so it's much more of a mature title. It's much more violent, and it's kind of like an acid dream. Like throughout the whole thing, it's completely bonkers, and it's just something else. It's just a wild ride. I won't go into much detail, but from the get-go, it pulls you in straight away, and you'll just love it. The other one I want to mention is Batman Beyond by Dan Jurgens. Again, this is not Bruce Wayne in the cowl, this is Terry McGinnis. Bruce Wayne is mentoring him because it is set in the future, so Bruce Wayne is now an old man, and it's basically Terry trying to get to grips with being his own Batman and rising through all the obstacles he has to go, because a few of Bruce's old rogues come out of the woodwork to kind of try and fight Terry. It's a pretty good run. I'll be honest, there is a lot of focus on Bruce Wayne, even though he's not Batman. There is a lot of focus on him instead of Terry, but regardless, Batman Beyond doesn't really get a lot of spotlight. The animated show in the 90s was awesome, and it is kind of a continuation of that. So if you enjoyed the 90s Batman Beyond, I'll definitely check this out. Other stories you can have stuff from Scott Snyder. So he did a story that was called Batman Court of Owls, which is like this underground society pulling the strings of the local crime in Gotham without Batman knowing whatsoever, and that's his first interaction with them, and he completely gets done. They completely have the upper hand throughout the whole thing, and it's just exceptional. It's really, really good story, and it's a really, really good place to start. Being that it's a bit older and it actually started in 2011, you could either choose to pick up the omnibus, which is going to be a little bit hefty price-wise. I believe that's £60. But I believe the trades are still in print, so you could read the first Court of Owls graphic novel and then Night of Owls, which is its follow-up story. Speaking of the omnibus as well, if you wanted to read something that was revolving around the Riddler, then you could also read Batman's Zero Year, which is Batman's first year of crime fighting. He's very rough, he's not used to taking on criminals, and he's very much learning as he goes. Other titles you might be interested in probably revolve around the Bat family itself. So if you don't know, Batman has like a whole family dynamic. Like there's Batgirl, there's Nightwing, there's Red Hood, just to mention a few. So there's loads of side characters that you kind of get the same feeling with, but it's their story as opposed to Batman. The first one I want to mention is Nightwing by Tom Taylor. Now, I mentioned his Batman Detective, which he's been knocking out of the park. Every single thing that he's written so far that I've read, I absolutely love. And this is him taking Nightwing and trying to bring him up to being an all-star, and it's selling like crazy. It's going out of print like the normal comics and stuff like that, and it's just released as a graphic novel. So it's a very in-demand title, and a lot of people are looking forward to reading it, as am I. The next one is Robin by Joshua Williams. Now, I read his Flash run, and it was really, really good. And I expect his Robin will be more of the same. It's taking Damian, who is the current Robin, away from Batman, and it's kind of giving him his own mythos and his own story. So I think that's perfect for Damian, because Damian hasn't really had any development as recently, really. Grant Morrison introduced him, and then since then DC haven't really done anything with him. So for him to get his own title and then to actually build him up to be more of a character as opposed to more of a sidekick is brilliant. And then of course you have two villain titles, the first of which is the new Harley Quinn title. I'm not too sure about the art, I'll be honest. The art is kind of ugly. It's kind of more of a anime art style. Not like the common anime that you get, which looks quite nice and stuff like that, but it's more of like one of the classic ones that look very rough around the edges, and like everything's all kind of squared looking wise. It's about her trying to get away from the Joker yet again. That seems to be her only thing at the moment, but this time with the incorporation of her working with Batman. Now, that for me sounds very interesting, and it is going to be something that I'm going to be reading soon. I know I've said that for a lot of these titles, but unfortunately I haven't had that much time at the moment to read. I've had a lot going on, so when I do review these titles, which I will probably put them on my Goodreads account, so I'll leave a description for that in the description below. Again, if you want to ask me any questions about any titles, like anything like that, please feel free to. I'm more than happy. I worked in a comic shop a while ago, and I'm no stranger to talking to people about comics and what's good and what's not. But of course, the thing you need to remember is it's very subjective. So what one person might like, you might not necessarily like yourself. So it does depend on what you're interested in and what kind of things you want from the story. The other title is Joker, which I believe is by James Typhonian IV again. It's about Joker. It's going to be nuts. It heavily features Jim Gordon. So to have interactions between those two about Batman, it will be very interesting to see. I'm on the fence with this because I kind of have Joker overload where I like him as a villain, but I don't think anything has been done with him recently that's been very good. He's featured in a few stories such as Their Dark Designs and The War of Jokes and Riddles, but apart from that, he's not really interested me that much. I preferred him when he was kind of like an old gang member, kind of leading a whole gang and stuff like that, more of a gangster kind of Joker instead of being weird and saying to Batman, I love you and stuff like that. That's not really what I like. It doesn't really make sense in the context of the character. Yes, they are rivals in their way of good versus evil, but to have them kind of have that dynamic is just strange. So as I mentioned, there will be some new upcoming titles that will be coming out as well. First of which will be Batman 89. And now this will be a continuation of Michael Keaton's Batman, so it will reference Batman 89 and Batman Returns. And it will have Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent become Two-Face, and it will also feature a new Robin as well. So that's very exciting. As it hasn't been released in trade paperback at the moment, I haven't been able to pick it up and read it, but as soon as it does come out, I will be getting it and I will be reading it. Another one that has recently been released is Batman Beyond Neo Year. The first issue isn't even out yet, and it's on my watch list. That's how excited I am for this series. I love Terry McGinnis. He is probably one of my favourite Batmen. Like, I like Bruce, but apart from him not ever getting over his parents being dead and stuff like that, he doesn't really do anything. Whereas with Terry, you kind of can build the character and you can set him into different directions and different places to go. He's not all brooding and stuff like that, which also appeals to me as well. But yeah, that's all my recommendations that I've got. Have you guys got any recommendations for me? If you're interested in other stuff that I have read, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, or anything like that, of course you can check it out on Goodreads. That'll be below. You can literally put in a search tab and find out every single thing I've read. It's that easy, but I have read a lot. So keep that in mind. Thank you for watching, and if you are seeing the new Batman film, I hope you enjoy it. I'll be seeing it in 2 days, so hopefully I'll enjoy it. Hopefully it'll be good. See ya.